Hello, welcome back. Week 2 of All Gathered Up, the show that runs parallel with the Great British Sewing Bee. It kind of goes into all the skills or maybe some techniques that came up each episode. And we do that because we've got more time. We know the Great British Sewing Bee, it's a quick old thing, certainly in the early weeks, for an hour to get all those sewers in, 12 or on 11 sewers now. But as always, you know we can go into that detail because we have the expert Carol Alayne, Master Tailor Couturier, with us. Good evening, Carol. How are you?
Hello, Stuart. It's raining here, but it's sunny where you are, because look what you're wearing.
Indeed. I thought we need some sunshine in our life today because it's miserable here in Suffolk too. Grotty, gloomy day, rainy now as I look out of the window. And I thought, right, we need to brighten it up. And you saw it on the mannequin last week, so I thought I would try and show it to you with my little gym top underneath. I just now need a garden party to go to, Carol. Have we got anything
We'll
lined up
sort
over the
that.
summer that we can go to?
Let's sort that out. Let's go to the palace. I think we could. I think I have it
Wonderful. So we had Sports Week. But
in.
before we go into Sports Week, Carol, did you see all the comments on last week's video? Wow.
How refreshing.
It,
People really interested in the technical side. Really good questions, some helpful points,
yeah,
particularly about how to thread, a larger top stitching
yeah.
needle. Use the groove. Yes, that was a really good point. So now, we're helping people, but the base is helping each other as well. So
Indeed.
it's a lovely dialogue.
It's the love for your expertise though and the
Mm.
appreciation of it. So I've got a few little messages here. It's just nice to go over what was said each week. So I thought I'd show you some. So just a few comments.
Mm.
Anna says, "I love all the detailed discussions. Thank you for doing this. Thank you, Anna, for watching. It's wonderful." So that was one. And then we had Nikki. She goes, "Thank you both for your informative take on the Great British Sewing Bee. I think this kind of content is sadly missing from the main show. I was interested to hear Carol's thoughts on the pattern challenge. It's such a shame there aren't some Carols working on the show." Look at that. That's lovely, isn't it?
Oh, well, thank you. Um,
And we've got, let's have a look at another one. Got a couple more. That's from Marie, this one. "Wonderful. Thoroughly enjoyed listening to Carol and her expertise, and for Stuart for adding to the charm. And for mainly for allowing Carol to speak uninterrupted." Good. I hope I don't interrupt too much, do I? I don't
Not at
chat too
all,
much.
Stuart. Not at all.
And then lastly, so thank you for that for Marie. And then Denise, she goes, "Round of applause. Time for my favourite YouTube vlog ever."
Oh,
Wow. Isn't that lovely, Carol?
good point. I'm glad it's working, Stuart, because how long has it been now? I wrote to you 4 years ago and
Yeah.
said, I don't like this. I don't like the absence of technical
Yeah.
language. And, you know,
And,
it, it
and, and
we need to inspire people and to show them actually, you're not making a mess of things. You're not doing wibbly wobblies. Here's what
yeah.
happens, and here's how we can help you get to be a better sewer. And I think it is working.
Oh, absolutely. When you
Mm.
see all those comments and all the views and there is a demand for it, and that's why YouTube works, because you can find the content. And boy, is there a lot of content out there. And
Mm.
yes, the content may not be to everyone's taste, but you can find the content for your taste. So there are different types of sewing shows like what we do. And it all comes down to the hosts and how they put them together. And I know a lot of people appreciate the technical side of it, and also the pictures that we're able to do now. And we're a bit techie here, so we can link up, and we're trying to strive with that. But that's the beauty of YouTube, and I always makes me remember back to I know I've talked about this many times before when I was younger, and I was quite envious of my dad and my brother who loved football and sport. I still like sport, but they loved football and watching it. They would excuse me, they would watch live football and then be chatting during the match. But then they would have that wonderful after show, wouldn't they, where they would have the
Oh,
pundits
yeah.
and they would
Yep.
then debate it and they would analyze it. They would then show bits back with slow motion and focus in on it. And my dad and my brother would have this amazing conversation. And my brother was probably only 17, 16, but the debate between him and dad about who played well, why did they play well, why did they lose, what could they have done differently, I was really envious of that because there was nothing
Oh,
like that in our craft world, was there? So
yeah.
this
Yeah.
show is that we get to
Mhm.
geek out in a way, talk more in detail about the craft we love. And
Mhm.
look, everyone is enjoying that extra hour of chat about the craft that we love. Because we don't
Yeah.
often get the chance to do it, do we?
No, you don't. And the show is soon over. It's like a
Yeah.
football match, or a baseball game. I know what you're talking about exactly. It's a big topic and we love it for so many different reasons. And it enriches for so many different reasons. And the show is an hour and then then the program's
Yeah.
over. You want more. You want to know more. And I mean, a great lesson during COVID when they sold out sewing machines because people suddenly had
Yeah.
time. And what did they want to do with their time? They wanted to get better at this.
Yeah. And I always remember you also saying being a sewer and a tailor and a couturier like yourself, it's actually quite a lonely job as well. You are on your own a lot of the time, aren't you? So to come together like we are now, talking about our skill and sharing tips, sharing skills, sharing techniques. I do it like this. Oh, do you? I do it like this. Oh, well, oh, that might be a new way. It's wonderful as well, isn't it? Coming together.
It is. And you're right, it's a solitary business. And so it is nice to have some dialogue, about it. I'm enjoying it immensely. And I
Oh,
love the way that you put things together and how you've beefed up the technology. And all I have to do is say, can we talk about this? And you
yeah.
get everything sorted out,
Oh.
Stuart. So, all I do, I just sit here and talk.
Well, you've got the hardest bit because you need to do all the talking now. Also, you do all the making too. And I know a couple of comments said, "Oh, we'd love to see what you do and what you're currently working on." And I have put some pictures in. So everyone get ready to see these makes from Carol. Let's go to this one first. Tell us about this one.
Okay, so this is a Dior inspired two-piece ensemble. It's made of silk, shot silk, black and midnight navy. So it's very dark fabric. And it's a bubble skirt with a very tall waistband. It's about 4.5 inches tall. And it has these, kind of defined, very thick metallic trim
Mm.
going vertically. And then also it has some metallic buttons. They're very bright silver, and I covered the buttons with a black and silver mesh to
Wow.
soften the that. And it's a halter, and it secures up the center back with a separating concealed zip. So I'd be interested to know if anyone out there has ever used a concealed zip that separates because you can't see it at all.
Wow.
And they're quite magical. They're a bit fiddly to install and fiddly to work with, but if you wax them, if you wax the teeth and the first prong that you insert, they work a treat. So that's how the skirt is made. It has 2 layers of netting and a bit of crinoline along the at the bottom of the netting. There's a crinoline to hold it open. And
Oh,
then,
so
yep.
oh, I've got my pen. I've got my pen back, so I can draw on it.
Okay.
Right, let's
Hmm.
see if this works. Um, so to hold that open, so the crinoline's along
Yes,
there,
it's
is it?
about 3 inches above the hem on the inside. So if you draw a dotted line, there you go.
Yeah,
The crinoline is holding. It's like this cage that
yeah.
holds the netting opened to that circumference that I'm asking it to,
Oh,
and then the whole thing goes into the hip line. This is a size 10, and it's on a size 12 mannequin. So you can see there's a bit of stress
Yeah.
in the piece because the piece is a little tight for the mannequin.
Yeah.
But it's the
Wow.
best size to show it off. And I just
Yes.
wanted to take a quick picture before I handed it over 2 days ago.
Oh, look at that, everyone. That's like current as we could possibly get. And then your second one here. Now, I've done a zoom out shot, but once we start talking about it, I'll enlarge it as we talk. Tell us about this one.
Okay. So this is a tailored piece, and this is a double-breasted. It has covered buttons, and it has button loops. So if you zoom in, you can see the button loops. And the collar, the revere, is buried into the shoulder line. And it's made of a silk weave with a very sort of heavy tapestry treatment to it. And it's difficult to see, but
Wow.
I've actually matched the pattern all the way around. So the sleeves and the center front, the center back, and the side seam of the trouser, everything matches. And I did that out of 3 meters of cloth. In fact, 2.8 meters of cloth. And I was determined to get it out. So it meant that I was going to raise the hem on the sleeve. So
Yeah.
it's a kind of just bracelet length. And then I raised the hem on the trousers so I could get everything out of 2.8 meters of fabric. So that's a silk kind of a tapestry. Yeah,
And
I'm
look at
really
that,
pleased
that
with that.
idea of I love the idea of the red underneath and the red shoes. I mean, that's just, just that little bit of
Yeah,
pop, isn't
I
it?
love red and gold together. So it's a shot, kind of a gold and a black
Yeah.
in the fabric. And yeah, the red accent is one of my favorites. I just like those two colors together.
And you look
Mm.
at that and just go, I'm really pleased with that. Or are you looking at that and going, oh, I'm glad I ain't got to do that one again, or both?
I think I'd like to make that many more times because I think it's
Oh,
a really lovely pattern, and it's not so severe. It doesn't look like a trussed up jacket.
no,
It's
no.
very soft, and that's what I love about it. And
It,
it's a lovely feminine piece if you want to show off jewelry or
yeah,
your rings, your bracelets, your watches, your shoes.
yeah.
All the pressure is taken off, so the accessories really shine with this kind of a piece. And it's easy. The button line is easy. The waist button is done up with a loop, and the lower button, the hip button is opened. So it's relaxed.
It is, yes, but it's just got something to it, and as that I like that how it comes up, and there's no cutting into it, to make it more look
Yeah.
like a suit with those cuts and things. It's just those nice two long panels going up. Beautiful.
Yes, it looks like it has a very wide shawl collar, but it all disappears into the shoulder line. So there's nothing at the back of the neck.
Oh,
There's a lot of freedom in this suit. I'm glad you like it.
love it. Absolutely
Mm.
love it. Right. Well, there we are, everyone. So that's what Carol's up to. Thank you for your comments and thank you for coming back. I know many of you, we don't see much of you during the year because actually we don't do much sewing during the year. I know I'm doing my wool shows from the shop, but it's lovely to come back each year and see those same faces back. So thank you very much for your lovely comments. Keep them coming. We always do the post as well after the show that asks for questions. If you've got any questions for Carol, we've got some of those. We'll do them at the end of the show after we've looked at the focus. So as you can see there, Sports Week, from watching this episode, Carol just knew straight away, well, we've got to talk about stretch, haven't we? This idea of the knits stretch fabric and then seeing some of the stretch fabric in the made to measure. So Carol said straight away stretch. And then as we saw throughout, the understitch came out and the stitch and the ditch in the first part. So there are 3 topics. So where should we start then? Should we start with the basics? Just a quick chat about what stretch is?
Sure. Stretch fabric is not warp and weft, like a woven fabric. And it's very stretchy. It moves differently. And each stretch fabric is different. You have what's called flat manufactured knits, and that has a selvage kind of like a woven fabric, but you can't trust the salvage for alignment.
Oh,
Okay,
right.
so generally with a warp and weft fabric, you can just go parallel to the selvage and you know you've got a straight of grain. Isn't the same thing with a flat woven knit fabric. And then you have something which is more tubular. And that's more part of your world, Stuart,
Yeah.
where you have a definite row of ribbing. And if you want to establish the grain in a tubular knit fabric, then you have to identify where those ribs are, and then you fold your fabric along that. So you can't trust a knit fabric in the same way that you can
Okay.
trust a woven fabric. And then, of course, it can be slippery if it's swimwear. It can be very bobbly. It can be like fleece, where the feed dog is not going to, hop along and bring it through like other fabrics will. So different preparations are needed. So in this challenge, first of all, there was very little time to do it. It was a very complicated thing to achieve because you had to insert zip in a window.
Hmm.
You had to align the zip with the collar in two
Yeah.
places, at the top and at the neck. Um,
Should we have a
you had to
picture of
cover
it?
stitch.
Let me
Yeah,
get
yeah,
let
let's
me
do
get a
that.
picture of it.
Yes.
So this was in the pattern challenge, and
Mm.
it was a half zip fleece. And as you can see there from the haberdashery requirements, a couple of zips and interfacing, but it was then fleece backed sweatshirting fabric. So like that jersey
Mm.
sort of fleece fabric, and that's the
Yeah.
pattern. Let's have.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
She,
here I am. I
she,
just wanted to get a piece of fabric. I just thought of something actually.
okay, yeah.
Um,
And hopefully,
yeah.
did you notice that when Carol walked away, her sound was crystal clear? She got posh lapel mic on, Carol. It's
Look at
brilliant. You
me.
see, we want to keep improving for you all.
Not as
All right.
posh as your mic, Stuart. Not
Yes,
nearly
my,
as
my
posh as
big
your
DJ mic here. Okay, right. Let me cut to the big window so we can see you a bit better. There you go.
Okay.
What have you picked
So,
up?
well, I found this fabric and it's knit, it's jersey, and I just thought, can you see how it's curling at the bottom?
Yeah, it's a nightmare. It does it all
Okay.
the time, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then I'm just gonna, this is the cross grain, this is the straight of grain here. It's curling here too.
Yeah.
So this is what you got to cope with. And I noticed that when the contestants were cutting things out, they were having to deal with
Yeah.
that curl all over the place. So that, that can create a real
Yeah.
mess if you don't give the fabric enough time to relax and almost weight it down as you're cutting it. So that's just wanted to mention that.
Let's have a look at their example. As always, we see the show's actual piece. And I thought that was very 80s. I was joking with Ting. Can you remember, Carol, a high street shop called C&A?
Definitely.
I
Oh yes.
I used to go there as a kid, and I think I had like a jacket or a shell ski jacket just like that
Yeah.
in those colours.
Those exact colors, yeah.
But there we are.
Yeah,
So
those are the colors.
we had these two zips that they wanted parallel, and then the patch pocket. The patch pocket was going to be hard enough because I think that was in the ripstop, which we've used before, haven't we?
We have ripstop doesn't stretch, and then the knit is very lively. So
Yeah.
already that's a very complicated thing to ask them to do.
And they asked a few more questions to understitch and to. I think they got a bit confused as well because they then said the cover stitch and a hem. But as you rightly pointed out, when they showed the cover stitch, well, it's still a raw edge there anyway. I thought that was the point of a cover stitch, was it not to save doing a cover up the hem? Is that the whole point
You're,
of it?
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The cover stitch is supposed to conceal the raw edge. And as you can see, the raw edge is clearly visible. It's shouting out at you. So
Yeah.
that cover stitch is not a success. So
They've basically just
if you're,
they've folded it over and then cover stitched it, haven't they?
yeah, yeah.
They should have
Yes.
still folded it over twice.
Well, they should have folded. You fold it over, and then you bend it back round, and you let the machine do what it does. And then when you flip it back, but it's not successful,
Yeah.
that, because it's supposed to conceal the raw edge. So if you're confused about cover stitches, and the comment was made, a lot of people might not have ever
Yeah.
used
Yeah.
cover stitch, you're going to refer to what?
Uh,
The sample.
yeah.
So that you're going to go check, how do I do this? And you're going to look at that,
I just
and
go,
don't get the right information, because
yeah.
a lot of people that are very sculptural, very artistic, a lot of people, you'd be surprised, have a problem with the written word, text.
Yes, you just
So
want to
that's
see
a
something.
challenge. It's a challenge for them. And I know in my teaching, I come across a lot of that. So they're going to go refer to the sample. And I'm wondering if you have a picture of the collar,
Oh, I
because,
do. Yes.
um, oh, I'm glad you did. Let me see.
They they
That
they
is exact.
they
Yeah.
asked them to understitch it. Well, did they ask them to understitch it? Because some of them were understitching it to make their sewing better, weren't they?
Yeah.
But this isn't
Yeah.
understitched, is it?
And they talked about they talked about having understitch in the challenge, one of the criteria, but yet again, as you're showing, there's no
Yeah.
understitching on that color. So if you're confused and you're having trouble reading the pattern, you go to refer to the sample, and it wouldn't be there,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't do it.
Yeah. It was a hefty challenge for sure, but let's go to the fabric itself then, with working with stretch.
Mhm.
How do we get the best out of it? Like even cutting it, when you're cutting it out, because as soon as you cut that, as you can see, it's going to roll. So what do you do with your pattern pieces? How do we hold them and not will it stretch even more? Will if we manhandle it too much, will it elongate? Will it lose its shape? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so this is all about practice and preparation. So when you're cutting out, um, the very act of putting a pin in, sometimes that fights the stretch of the fabric. Sometimes people will put a pattern down and they'll try to smooth out the fabric into stretching it. So then they'll pin it, and then the pattern will pop up because they've smoothed the fabric too hard, and then stretched it out, and then now the pattern is, bigger than the space that you've allowed with your pins. That's a problem. Cutting out is a real trick. So you just have to lay the fabric out and let it relax, put the pattern on top, and then just very carefully make small cuts instead of sweeping cuts,
Oh,
because the
right.
fabric is going to fight it. And it's just practice. And there's so many different kinds of knits. So we saw just briefly, we saw them using a rotary cutter
Yeah.
for the transformation challenge. But I want to talk today about preparation. So
Cool.
I've made some samples to just talk about how to get work ready.
Yeah. Let's go over
And
to
then
the.
we'll talk about the various aspects of this challenge. So
Okay, let's go to
let's
this
see.
camera. We should. Look at
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Love it.
Um, I was very brave because I didn't have any stretch fleece. So the only stretchy fabric I have enough of is swimwear. So
Oh
I thought,
no.
if I can show this in swimwear, it'll work for anything. So I'm using a ballpoint needle, and it's size 80. And I'm using regular sewing thread, nothing special. And the first thing I did was to make a sample.
Wow.
And we always talk about doing that
Yeah.
first. Okay.
And that's
There's
not popping. Those stitches aren't popping, are
no,
they?
no, they're not popping. Everything's fine. I adjusted the tension, and that's as much wear and tear as that's going to take.
Yeah.
Longer stitch on my industrial, it's 3 and a bit. It's not far off a basting stitch, but make a sample. Always make a sample. Um, Preparation of the knitwear is interesting as well. The two things I like to do, one is use a fusible. There's a small strip of fusible on here, and I've just made sure that the fusible strip is over the seam line. And I've not put it on with a hot iron.
Okay.
I've just put it on warm enough so that it glues, because all you need is it to just stay that seam, And then when you sew it,
God, that's
then the
slippery.
job is done. Yeah, I know it's
I
really,
just loved how
whoa.
it just went on your hand and you let go and it just went.
I
Whoop.
know. You see? The other thing you can do is you can stay stitch. Can you see that
Oh,
row
just
of
come
stitching
down
here?
a bit. I can't move any further. That's it. There you go. Yeah.
So can you see that row of stay stitching
Yeah.
here?
Yeah.
So this is machine stitching. It isn't as effective, um, but I'm trying this on the curve. This is the neck curve, okay? You can also sew a stay stitch on the straight,
Yeah.
but in this case, I just want to show you, I've got two lengths here, and let's get this out of the way.
Your desk
So you
looks as
can
messy like
see,
mine.
I know, oh, it's a mess in here, all right. On this side, this is a center back seam, and on this side, I've used a fusible stay.
Okay.
So it's just fusible interfacing. It looks like this.
It comes as a
It's
tape, yeah?
comes as a it comes in a roll,
Oh, you've cut it
and
thin. I get you. Yeah.
it comes in a roll, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've cut about a 3/8 of an inch
Yeah.
stripe off that. This is really handy. And the other thing I've used is this Ridgeline product, which is on the bias.
Oh.
But there is a core running through it
Oh, I can see on that. Yeah. Yeah.
that keeps it from stretching.
Yeah.
It's not as secure as this, because that's a woven, that's a warp and web.
Yeah.
But these are the two products I'm going to be using. Just want to show you that if you stay stitch with the machine, it's not really effective. And what can happen to you is you can end up with one
Yes.
side
And I think some of
longer
the
than the
sewers
other.
had that, didn't they?
They
Yeah.
did, absolutely. So you can go back to your pattern
Yeah.
with this, and you can measure the size that you need, and then cut two of these strips, apply them the same way, and then check them.
Okay.
Check them to make sure that they're the same size. So now on this one, instead of stay stitching with my machine stitching, so slippery, I've applied the Ridgeline, the bias one, to the neck,
Yeah.
straight to the shoulder, and the straight to, as it happens in this one, it's a center back seam. So that's a little bit about preparation
Okay.
and making a sample. Now let's talk about the garment itself. And there's a couple of things I have to say.
Oh, I'm so chuffed about your sound. I can't get over how good you sound,
Oh,
Carol.
me
I
too.
hope viewers,
Me
you
too.
appreciate it too. You sound brilliant.
Because somebody put in the comments, Carol sounds
I
really
know, I know.
fun.
Because you were away from the machine, so you were like in the distance. So this is wonderful, really wonderful. Oh,
This
look
is
at that. That
good.
looks nice.
Okay, now here we are. Can we see what we're doing? Now,
Yeah.
this isn't the same pattern as we had in the pattern challenge, but you can see what we're after
Yeah.
here. We've got our funnel neck,
Yeah.
which is prepared for a zip insertion right here.
Yeah.
That is going to match up.
Oh, beautiful.
And then we've done our inside of the collar in a contrast.
Yeah.
And we have our
So neat.
understitching. Okay. Now I'm just going to peel away because I thought I'll show you the preparation.
Yes.
Okay. So on the inside where the zip goes, I have my straight woven
Yeah.
fusible. And because the leaf edge of the collar is on a curve,
Yeah.
and the neck edge is on a curve, I have used the Ridgeline on the bias. It's a softer, but it handles the curve.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay? I've done the same thing on the inside of the collar seam
Yeah.
down at the neck.
I can see that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, and on the shoulder, let's go to the shoulder. I've put again the woven fusible to keep that under control because it's a straight line, doesn't curve. On the neck edge, I've sewn the seam and then I clipped the curves. So the fabric will now move.
Oh.
I don't know if they did that on the sewing bee. They probably didn't have the time to do this.
I would have thought they didn't have the time, I'm sure. Yeah.
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 And and I've also clipped the curves on the leaf edge of the collar.
Brilliant.
So I did that after I understitched. But look, this is swimwear. This is the most unruly of fabrics. And you can see how just putting that preparation.
Oh, and look how good that looks.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one more thing I want to show you about this is now we're coming to stitch in the ditch.
Okay.
So when you understitch, you're bringing everything to one side. You're encouraging it this way.
Yeah.
And you can see that you've got that little lip of the main fabric on the top. Okay. Then this fabric falls down
Oh, just come
the
down a bit.
inside of your, okay.
That's
How's
perfect.
that?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you can see a little blue stripe of the main fabric
Yeah.
here on the top.
Yeah.
Then you see the seam here for your
Yeah.
inside of the collar.
And then
You're understitching. All this treatment makes it so that this is now becomes slightly longer.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got a bit more room to work with the inside of the collar because it's folding in this way.
Yeah.
Now, one more thing to show you so that when you do stitch in the ditch, everything is going to be lying flat and you're not going to have any stitching that comes in or out of this ditch. And it's all about making sure that everything is in alignment. So I would say that it would be a very good idea to set up a parallel row of stitches. Okay, so let's just work with this section. Can you see this, Stuart?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because,
You're putting
okay,
big, long basting
okay.
stitches.
Yeah, and let's just make another row here. And with the underside, you're working with part of your hand here. These fingers are making sure that everything is lying flat and sandwiched.
Yeah.
So you got two fingers here and you've got three fingers underneath. So we're sandwiching everything together. Now let's put one more row in, which is now going to include the seam allowances, right?
They're like those big V's we did when we were doing the pad. What was that? The shoulder pad. What was it called?
That's it. The padding stitch. You're
Oh, it
absolutely
was
right.
that.
Oh, you're such a good student. Okay. So there we are. So now you see what we've done. We've padded that together
Yeah.
so that everything is going to line up. And when you stitch in the ditch, nothing's going to get out of line.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be nice and flat. So, and then look how crisp that is.
Oh, come
to
down a
take
bit.
the zip up.
There you go.
You
Oh,
see how crisp that is. Okay.
yeah.
And inside here on the center front edge, I've got that same reinforcement. It's the woven one. It's this one. So on all your straight lines, go ahead and use this and cut it. You know, you don't have to waste it. You can make strips of 3/8, half inch, 3/4, whatever. On a curve, use this. You can see how it's curling.
Yeah.
It wants to curve.
It's brilliant.
You see?
Is that that black one that with the reinforcement in? Is that a Vilene one?
It is.
Yeah, I thought it was.
It's Vilene.
Yeah.
Yeah. I might have said Rigeline by accident.
Oh no.
It's a Vilene.
The Vilene is the company, but I think they probably call it Rigeline, don't they?
The Rigeline is a boning product. No, it's Vilene. You're absolutely right.
What I'll make sure we do is, because that's from McCulloch and Wallace, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I'll try and
William G.
I'll try and put the links
suppliers
down below to that actual, because Vilene have got loads of different products of interfacing and bonder web to make it easy for you, because I know many of you might just want to go and purchase some.
Exactly right. And you're right to mention there's so many products that can help you set up control in your project. Yeah. Okay. And you can't lose, everything's going to come out nice and crisp. It's all going to line up because you're insisting that the space that the pattern gives you is adhered to.
So turn it over. Can I just see where you would, the stitch in the ditch where you're going to put your needle?
Okay. So we're going to put the needle right here in the ditch because we've pressed the seam open. That's the ditch right here.
Yes.
That is the ditch you're going to sew through, but on the other side.
Right.
And you're going to
catch.
You're going to catch that,
Yeah.
this layer, okay? So let's turn it over. And here's the curved seam. And this is where you're going to sew,
Yeah.
right in here. And the needle will find its way in there.
Yes,
Let me
because
see.
you've pressed everything out, so you
Yeah.
actually haven't got an equal amount of fabric on either side, have you? Because it's spread
Yeah,
both sides.
that's right. And so, I pressed this on the wrong side here.
Yeah,
Then I turned it over and I pressed it
pressed.
on this side as
Brilliant.
well
Yeah,
to make sure that seam is well and truly flattened out.
yeah, yeah.
And
Because
then
I
it's, yeah, you want to be able to see this.
yeah,
The needle is a long way away from
yeah,
where you are. So
yeah.
you want to make sure that your presser foot is well lit and you've got a good sight line to it so that the needle just, it
And
just rides right in there.
I presume you're okay with your presser foot. I know with domestic machines, we can actually use presser foots where the toe is open to give you more visual space. But you're a pro. You don't need to choose to change your presser foot, do you? Because you can see. But yes, have a look. If you've got a posh machine, you'll probably have a box full of different feet. So look for an open toe one. You might even find a brilliant stitch in the ditch foot that has a groove that comes like think of a
Ah,
ship and its rudder coming down, and that rudder
yeah.
would glide through that groove as well. So look for a stitch in the ditch foot to help.
I think I remember you telling me about this.
In
Now,
the patchwork world, we
yeah.
stitch in the ditch a lot. I hate it
Uh-huh.
because it's so hard. Because in the patchwork world, we wouldn't necessarily press open our seams, because in quilting that actually can make a seam less strong because it's open. You would quilt through the ditch, which is just the thread in essence, isn't it?
I see.
Um,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
so we would then fold our fabric when we do our seams. We fold to the dark side. So we would actually have 3 layers of fabric on one side and then 1 layer on the other. So our presser foot
Oh,
could be a bit wonky, whereas yours, because it's pressed open and so
yes.
beautifully flat like
Yeah.
that, your presser
Yes.
foot will glide over, won't it?
It will. And when you're sewing, your needle is here. You can always just
Yeah,
separate.
yeah,
You
brilliant
use
tip.
your hands when you're
Yeah.
sewing.
And
And,
I can see your stitching there. You could just see, can't
yeah,
you? Look
see?
at that,
Yeah.
everyone.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah. And nothing's breaking, nothing's
No.
pulling because the seams are already reinforced. Now,
Oh,
just a quick word about the pocket, if I may.
of course you can. Yeah.
Okay. The pocket and the zip. I'm not quite
Where?
sure.
Oh, look.
Uh, yeah.
Oh, what is in the
Okay.
ripstop stuff? Yeah.
This is the ripstop
Okay.
nylon. And I'm just
Excuse
going to
me. I've
bring
got a
our
bit of a
old,
tickle.
uh,
There you go.
I've got our old friend, the Clapper, out for this one
I
because I just
love
want to show
it.
you one thing. When you're doing a pocket, and you've got the window that you have to
Yeah.
insert the zip in. The nice thing about ripstop nylon is that when you go to mark this through to your fabric, you actually make a hole in the ripstop. So you'll see that pinhole. But first, everybody, make sure that the pocket is at right angles and it's square or it's a true rectangle. Because when you're sewing parallel things to the zip and the pocket has to line up and there's another zip, you want to make sure you're dealing with parallel lines. So make
Ah.
sure your pattern is square. That's the first thing. Okay. And then when I was sewing this window, like I said, I took my pattern and I just put a pin through, and then I'll do it over here because when you're marking your fabric, you can kind of make a big hole for yourself and then you can see it. Now you may not be able to see that at home, but that's a nice way to mark.
Yeah.
And then make sure once you get your window, make sure take some tool that will give you some parallel lines and make sure everything is at right angles. Because you want to make sure that this window is a perfect rectangle. So do check. All right?
Yeah.
Make sure everything is square. And then I've actually doubled the size of this pocket. Instead of putting a small facing in, I've doubled the whole pocket so that when I turn this through, I've got 2 layers. And that's strong.
Yeah.
Ironing on interfacing, which has a completely different set of properties to this ripstop nylon,
Yeah.
is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So why don't you just double up a fabric which is already taut, which is already under control?
Yeah.
And then we sewed our box out. We've clipped into the corner.
Yeah.
And then here's where the clapper comes in handy. Because what I'm doing here is I'm actually going to hand press these seams opened.
Oh, I love a finger press. Yeah.
Like that. You see, you
Yeah.
do that a lot in quilting
Oh,
because you've got
so
to,
much.
yeah, you see? So that skips a step of having to go back to the iron
Yeah.
and not going to risk burning this. Okay.
Oh, which
so then
we did have a few issues of that, didn't we? A couple of them had the iron, and then the interfacing got stuck, and then it was on the iron. It was like, ah.
I know. And then the whole thing is out of whack.
Yeah.
And if you make a mistake, sometimes the easiest thing to do is just cut another one. Just start over.
Yeah.
Now you've given it a finger press. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I just wanted you to see how crisp everything does come out.
Oh, I can see it already. Oh.
Yeah, you see. Now this side has been finger pressed, that side hasn't. So you see the difference.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay?
How much?
And now you've turned it out, and what's left to do? Just turn both under.
It's it. Yeah.
Right? And you can again
your
sew
pocket, your patch.
Yeah. And then your zip can get inserted right in there, and everything will be fine. And everything will match up perfectly.
Look
Let's
at
just
that.
see if I can do this. Whoops, there we go.
Look at
Yeah,
that,
see?
everyone.
Yeah, see there? We're
Yeah.
right down below the end. We're right there. So a bit of trick about how to set in that zip, and make sure you get it right way around.
Yes. Yeah. Though saying
we
that,
had
it doesn't necessarily matter, because Georgie, who put her zip in upside down, she still came second.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it's okay. The pocket works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Oh,
just a
fabulous.
few tips there for
Fabulous.
you. Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
And when you look at how slippery that, what did you say, it was swimwear, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
But actually, how nice was it? It looked really great, didn't it?
And it's just about control. And I think it's knowing your fabric, and that's why it's so important to do a few tests.
Yeah.
Try things out, make a smaller version of what it is that you're doing, and just get to know it.
If you ever have to use that type of fabric, do you go, oh no? Or actually, have you learned to love that sort of man-made specialist type of fabric?
Everything's a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And because I'm in the business, people bring me things and they say, I want you to make this out of this. Now, it's my job to say that's not suitable, or, well, let's give it a go and let's try. But generally, there are so many ways, as you mentioned, about all these products that are on the market that you can use to tame the job.
Yeah. And actually, that brings me on to a nice point. Who was it? I'm trying to think. Look at my list. I think it was Luke. They got a mesh. I think it was Luke. He was going. Sorry, not he. They were going to use a mesh, and they bought it online and couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
And then got it through, and then suddenly, oh no, this doesn't stretch at all. There was hardly any stretch in it. You can't beat going into a shop to feel it and to get it. So I know they probably didn't have a chance to do that. They had to buy online because there aren't many specialist fabric shops around. But yes, buy a little bit first, then test it, see it, and then if it works, then buy your 3 meters worth. Because that's difficult, isn't it?
It is. It's hard to be stung on line like that because like
Yeah,
you say, you can't evaluate anything. But once he got the fabric in and he realized it didn't stretch, there might have been some things he could have done,
yeah,
like just put a pleat in, a
yeah,
soft pleat or a little bit of shearing, just add some more length or width, whatever it is that he
yeah.
needed. There would have been a way to do that.
Let's look anyway at now the pattern challenge, at how they did, and talked about a couple of them in detail. Then we're going to go to the made to measure because they had stretch fabrics in the made to measure
Mm.
too. But let's have a quick look at the pattern challenge. And let's go to the group shot, if I can find the group shot, which is there.
Oh,
Let's
yes.
take a few of those pictures out in the background. So there we go. I think colour was a big part of the criteria. They said, we want you to play with colours, give us some vibrant combinations. And I know we've discussed about colour and how the judges will often evaluate colour rather than the actual garment. But clearly here, colour was part of the assessment criteria. And when you look at it, the colour choices in certain respects really do work, don't they?
Oh, yes, yes. There's some real popping, color popping going on there. Yeah. No, they look good in a lineup, don't they?
They do. We have a few to look at in particular. Susie's one is I've highlighted because the color combinations, the zip. Look at the. I've got my pen working. Look at that. I know we talk about junction points, don't we? And
That's nicely done.
isn't
Very
it?
nicely done. Yeah, and the teal and the bright pink. That's really successful, isn't it? Now you can see that the zip and the pocket is not completely parallel. That's what
Yeah,
I was saying about just, test your square of your pockets and
yeah,
make sure then that won't happen. Very simple thing to do, but she's handled it incredibly well because the collar is meeting at the top and at
yeah.
the neck. Nice job.
Yeah. Then we have Don there, and that leads us quite nicely on because we were just complimenting Susie on that junction, and then that one
Mm,
was out there and that one was out there. It's hard, isn't it? You do,
very
it's
difficult.
hard, but when you do get that junction right, you do feel rather chuffed with yourself, don't you?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it's just something you just have to see ahead of time.
Yeah,
You just have to know that that's what you're working toward. Because when I think the time element is the real problem here. There's
yes.
some very good sewers, and we're not seeing their best work. It's because of the
No,
time crunch.
it is, and that is infuriating. We did talk about that last week. Just give them a bit more time because we at home as well. I think we would get more excited about the show because we'd be seeing more finished garments and would be seeing
Mhm.
better quality. We'd be seeing the sewer's actual talent rather than it being messed up because they've got no time. And sometimes I think Patrick, bless him, goes, "Oh well, oh if you had a bit more time, you would have got this finished." You're like, no, really?
Yeah,
This is
no
it's
kidding. Yeah,
so
I mean, this is the second week in the row that most people haven't finished the
yeah,
pattern challenge.
yeah,
This has not happened in earlier
yeah.
series.
And I think the viewers are getting then it feels a bit flat after every round because it's like, oh, not finished. Oh, not. We want to see something lovely, so give them the time, and then let them all make some wonderful garments, and then we'd be really honing in on the analysis, wouldn't we? Was her sewing better? Because they'd have to
Yes,
go so more detailed, wouldn't they? In the
that's true.
analysis.
Yeah, we're not comparing like for like, are
Yeah.
we, in this case? And I thought this was one of the better hems. Don is
Yeah.
one of my favorite sewers. I think he's
Yeah.
an excellent technician, and he put a zigzag hem in it, and it looks brilliant.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Good solution.
Sometimes those basic ones, the simple zigzag without having to go to the trendy machine, they work. They've always worked in the past, haven't they?
Absolutely. Case in point.
Marcus, who won. Let's close that one. And where's Marcus? Is there. He got fabric from everyone. I know we sort of analysed him a bit, me and Ting on the other one, because he didn't quite finish his hem round the
Uh,
back. but he still won. But that's why I said I think the judges had colour higher up their criteria, and the colour choices, because he had 10 different fabrics of colour,
Yeah.
it really did work, didn't it?
It did. And I'm just wondering if he got his sleeves on the wrong armhole, because the pitch of the sleeve is very backward on this one. So I think that was another
Oh,
problem.
oh
Yeah.
my
I,
word. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's
I
going the other
think
way.
he suffered from that. Yes.
Well, and he still won. He still came first, even though he
How
had
about
the
that? Eh?
even though he had
How
the
about
arm and
that?
the hem.
Yep. Yep. Interesting, isn't it? But he did handle the pockets and the collar very
Yes,
well. And I
absolutely.
think, did he understitch properly? Did he
I'm
understitch the
not
right way?
sure. I don't think I've got a close up. I think I've only got a close up of the back, but you can still marvel at
Yeah.
how it sits there. But I think probably,
And yeah, and have to say the color combination of using all 10 really
yeah.
worked well. He mixed it up very well.
And then Alex, let's have a look at Alex's one. Look at that.
Nice. Soft,
Yeah,
a softer combination, but well executed. And still the complementary colors do
they
work,
do.
because the choice of zip actually adds to the richness of it, because he's got two different colors of orange in there.
Oh no, Alex is this Alex?
Oh,
Alex is a she.
Alex,
Yes.
sorry, sorry.
But this is now what interesting. She had the time to put the
No.
applique on the back.
This is beautifully done. I thought it was such a happy thing
Yeah,
to finish off with. And okay, the only thing she needed to do was press it.
yeah,
Okay, it's a little bit wavy, but why not? I was really sore at the judges for saying, for almost talking her down for doing that.
yeah.
But it beautiful job.
Well,
Why not?
if she had the time to do it,
Yeah,
but I know as you look there, it's hard to tell. But Comfort here struggled and didn't finish. Don had a hem missing, and Susie. So
yeah.
it must have been hard. But when you look at them there, they're nearly there. But considering the challenge, it was a lot to fit in. Now let's go to the made to measure. And let's go to this one. A very special picture. Not this one here. Let's get rid of that one. Look at
Yeah.
that. This is a made to
Okay.
measure from Carol, everyone. The 2012 Olympics. Tell us about this.
Okay, so this is for Team Britain, the shooting. This is for the trap and the skeet, and this is a gilet, which although you can't see it, there is a half belt. There is a pair of patched cartridge pockets that have to hold 25 shells. So the pocket has to be connected up to the shoulder seam, so the weight of those shells doesn't bring the jacket down, so to put any stress on the shoulder line. This is made of padded quilted cotton along the center front, and then a dyed bright blue mesh along the sides and the back to aerate the athlete so it's not too hot. And then a handmade bias binding that goes all the way around the arms and the neck and the bottom. But I'm glad you included this photo. We talked about it. It just goes to show how when you're making an athlete's garment or a garment for a specific purpose, how important it is to talk to that individual and find out what it is that they want, what they need in comfort, what they need in durability,
Yeah.
how it's going to help their performance, all sorts of factors. And for this particular garment, I did the whole team, and I think there were 14 people, with including the alternates.
Wow.
And this Steve Wilson, he won the gold medal. We had 6 fittings, but he was very particular. We made sure that we handled every one of his requirements, and he won the gold medal. He was comfortable, and everything worked for him. And when I looked at this challenge, I seriously, I had to wonder how many people actually took into account what the athletes wanted and their comfort factor. So
Yeah.
I got a few things to say about that, from my experience addressing athletes.
And this, well, it's just come up recently, hasn't it? Because we've obviously got the Olympics this year, and I think I saw an article. The Americans are unhappy with Nike. What was the what did they say? My hoo-ha is going to be out. One of the Olympians said the Nike they slammed Nike for skimpy
Oh my
women's
goodness.
track kit. And
Oh, dear,
it's
dear,
this
dear.
idea, as you say, function over look, and then this idea of I think the gymnasts had it on the last Olympics, didn't they? That they wanted them to be less about almost, is it like the sexualizing the body? Let's make
Yes,
an outfit
yes.
for the Olympian to wear. It's not about trying to is it feminize them or something? All those discussions
Yeah.
were going on, weren't they?
Yeah. I wonder if it suffers from the same thing that the high street suffers from, where by they're designing things on a mannequin, which is symmetrical and not exactly muscle bound,
Yeah.
these mannequins. And then suddenly, I mean, Olympic gymnasts, well, Olga Korbut, her day has been changed dramatically. If you look at Simone Bowles now
Yeah.
and how muscular she is
Yeah.
and how built up she is, Olga Korbut was a tiny thing, and her offering on the mat was
Mm.
completely different. So I wonder if that has something to do with it. We're designing things digitally,
Mm.
with our Procreate and Photoshop and all
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and then we're working with mannequins that are symmetrical. And actually, that's a good case in point because I think somebody did a green, yellow, and a black gymnast outfit.
Yeah. Let's go to it.
And
That
okay,
that was Lauren. It was Jamaica.
yes, okay, beautiful, striking. But this is nylon and plastic.
Yeah.
Is that going to be comfortable for a gymnast? And a crew neck, when you're somersaulting around. Do you need that? Or would a scoop neck be better? Um,
You what coming right down like that? So you
Something
get
like
you
that.
get rid
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
arms. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, just to be more free and to have
Yes.
the arms free
Yeah.
because the somersaults and the round offs and the cartwheels and
Yeah.
all that. I just wonder if that crew neck is a bit
It's
too
oh
intrusive,
yeah. Oh, I see.
you
Come
know?
come down a bit more. Yes.
Come down a
Yeah.
bit, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I suppose this is made to measure. I presume our sewers are just finding patterns off the shelf, aren't they?
Yes.
But then if you've got time to practice, maybe you could alter the pattern, but you would only alter the pattern, I suppose, with confidence and experience, something that you
Yes.
get with time.
And in this case, I would say, well, let's take that pattern, but let's leave a little bit of inlay. Let's leave some flexibility so that if we need a bit more under the bum, it's there.
Yeah, I
And
see.
that's where you can, when you do your fit, then you can say, actually, a bit too much skin is showing. This is a bit too skimpy.
Yeah.
My whatever is going to show or whatever is going
Yes,
to
my
happen.
hoo-ha.
But yeah, yeah, yeah. So then, and I think, is this the one that the elastic popped
It
out as
did,
well?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. It
But
was a bit too cut up on the
yeah,
back side, I thought.
but when
Mm.
you look at that material must have been hard to work with.
It is. Sequence is very difficult to sew through.
So full respect to Lauren there for tackling that.
Definitely.
Let's
Yeah.
look at a couple of others because I then want to move on to someone else. Marcus with Team GB in a nice fitting, loose fitting top because this was for someone, I'm just going to check my notes, who is speed climbing. So the
Okay.
t-shirt's a bit looser, a bit more flexibility there, and he's made the chalk little pocket there too. I like the neckline
And
there.
yeah, I think this is good. And I like the shorts are
Yeah,
longer and they're tighter on the leg.
yeah,
So as long as that's a stretchier fabric, then it's not going to be in the way, flapping around or anything. So it's nice that it's contained on the body.
And let's go to Georgie, which we saw just at the beginning, because she got Garment of the Week of this. Now, when I
Yes.
saw it, I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool because it's got different fabrics. And I know sport, they like to mess around with the mesh, don't they, in their different fabrics. And I like the swoops. But I suppose practicality, it was what was it? Was it a sprinting kit, a track kit? Just checking. Georgie track kit, yes. Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't know how flexible it was. What did you think of this, Carol?
I thought this, I like it from a design standpoint, and the color palette is very nice, but I just looked at that and I felt uncomfortable just looking at it. I thought that particularly on the bust line, that this line under the bust, there's just not enough room,
Yeah.
It's very, I found it very claustrophobic just looking at it. Also, the black swoop around the neck
Yes.
looked like it was very close to the neck.
Yeah.
And I do we have a back view of that?
I don't, sadly, no,
No.
no. But I think
I just thought that.
Patrick did say maybe that was a little bit, but I think it's the experimenting, isn't it? It's not something you would actually see, whether that was an off-the-shelf pattern or whether Georgie adapted it and made it her own, which, if she did, fabulous in that respect.
It just looked really constricting on the top
Yes.
for me.
Yeah.
High up under the arm there with the black, right under the armpit. It didn't
Yes,
look
if
like
you're
it was.
running, that might cause a bit of chafing, mightn't it, I suppose? But I know we're going into detail.
Yeah.
One that I know we both liked, but you in particular said, oh, are we going to talk about Dawn? I went like, yes, is Dawn. And I've got a special page for Dawn because if you love like me with junctions, you've got to love this skirt because it was magnificent, wasn't it?
This was one of my favorites.
All right.
And I love the color, the soft combination.
Yeah.
Golf is a contemplative sport. It's not loud, it's not racy. And I like the softness of this. And I think I remember Dawn saying that actually the skirt is the most important part of the uniform.
Yeah.
For a golfer. That has to fulfill a certain criteria. Look at that.
Look at that.
Look, it's pristine.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That centre
On the
seam.
hem there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then look at this one. Look at that junction.
Yeah.
Look on the
I
waistband.
remember that. Yeah, I remember that well. Yeah.
And then
He's handled that so beautifully.
going round to the pocket and then down here. Look at the crispness of that.
So well handled. Now that's all about knowing how to handle fabric. Okay, and it's the time element again. I think they're supposed to. Look at the concealed zip.
Yeah.
It's superb.
Yeah.
That is superb. You can't even see where it ends, can you?
No.
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 So perfection that. And then the time element. I forgot what the time element was for this, but he got everything done except setting in the collar.
Yeah, where is it? There. It's,
Yeah,
they had
there
4.5 hours. Yeah.
Lovely buttonholes. Everything is fine. And that's kind of a jersey knit for the top, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's, that's...
It's very, very close. It doesn't look like it, but it's very nearly done.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
when you look
what
at
a
it from
shame.
there. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, well
Hey.
done, Don, for that. Well, there we go. Let's move on. Let's finish as we said. We will do questions. So we after the show airs and the Carol then goes, we're going to do this topic. I then post on YouTube on our community channel, and if you're a member, you'll know where that is, and I think you'll get a notification that I've posted. And we have a few questions. So I think that most of them are discussion questions, so you don't have to go to your machine and you don't have to go rooting around for buttons like last week. Though I think everyone secretly enjoyed that. Practical Stitches has said about, because of talking about stretch, she says, have you used the Mariflex or Eloflex threads on knits? And what threads do you recommend when working with knits?
Well, I tend to use regular sewing thread,
Okay. Yeah.
30, 40, or the Gutermann, which is yeah, it's around 40, 50, I think. Silk thread if I want something a bit stronger. But as you saw, I prepare things
Yeah.
so that it accepts a regular sewing thread.
Yeah.
If I'm overlocking, then I do use a stretch thread. And the one that I just happen to have here is the Seriflock.
How
So
do you spell
that I
that?
use, it's Seraflock. And I
Yeah.
use that. I just have it out because that's what I use for swimwear if I'm
Ah,
overlocking.
yeah.
So I use that because it's a fluffier, stretchier, and it accommodates the seam expanding. And so,
Yeah, and I can understand from a couture point of view, you will want to still be using natural too, and just thread from that point of view. I know in the commercial world, like Vilene, Guttmann, they will have all types of these threads that they suggest that you use for metallics or for sequins and things, and they will often end in flex, like Mariflex, and each company will have their
oh
own.
yes,
um, as we said, best off just buying some and having a play and see how it works.
yes,
See how it works with your machine too. But I know as soon as you start going to those threads, you'll sometimes run into issues with your bobbin, and what
yeah.
threads to have in your bobbin, and then with your needle. And
Mm.
I've done a lot of research on sewing machine needles. I'm going to drop all the links in below because half of the sewers probably could have had a much easier time with the denim skirt last week had they maybe used a denim needle,
Yeah.
or even the top stitching needle. So Class A have made these different needles to suit different parts, different fabrics. And the top stitching needle is lovely because it's got a huger eye, if that's English, a bigger eye. And I actually use a top stitching needle as my normal needle. I think it's the top stitching. Oh, I've got one here.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking.
I'm going to try that. I'm good. Yeah, I'm interested. I'm going to
If I
try
cover
that
my
out.
face up, will that?
Oh yes. Oh, top
I've got my
stitch.
light on, so I don't think you can see. Um,
Yeah.
it's a top stitching. I've got a medium, so this is 9014.
Mm.
But it's just got a bigger eye. So, so when you're drawing your needle, most needles will have an eye like that. The top stitching will be almost like that. So it's way easier if you can't see very well and you don't have
Right.
one of those cool threaders. You could just thread it by your eyes anyway. But also,
I'm
top stitching thread is thicker. So when it's
yes.
going through the eye, it feeds it through, so your machine has less issues.
Yes, less drag on it.
Yeah,
Less. Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm going to try that. I'm going to look into that,
Oh, do
Stuart.
it. And another one as well, another underrated needle, is the metallic needle. They're often yellow, or it's called metafill or metallic, and again a larger eye, and it's all about the shaft. And I've got a quick little video here which I can just show you for the top stitching needle. Have a look at this, Carol. It's only 30 seconds long,
Okay.
and see this.
The top stitching needle.
Where is it?
And I have to say, this is my favourite needle.
No, I need to do that again. Let's do this, and then let's do. Can I do? Oh, I might not be able to do it live. Where is it? Top stitching. Hang on there, everyone. There it is.
The top stitching needle. And I have to say, this is my favourite needle, and it's the one I use an awful lot of the time, in fact nearly most of the time. It has an extra large eye which accommodates thick top stitching thread. Extra sharp point too, which allows the needle to penetrate through all the fabrics, like you would do when top stitching or even when quilting.
There you go. How cool was that?
Very cool. I like the sound effects too.
I've
Go
made
faster
loads of them. I've
music.
done one for the jeans needle, which they sometimes call denim. I've done one for the ballpoint needle. I've done one for leather. It can game change your sewing if you just want to get.
Gonna try that.
Oh, right, yeah. I'll drop all the links below. I've made one long video and then I've also made lots of little videos. So if you're unsure, and they've color coded everything. So Top Stitching is orange. I think Schmetz do the same color codes as well. But I'm a Class A fan. So I often use, they've made the quilting. Oh, I've got to cover my face up, haven't I? The quilting.
That's good.
Can you see when it? Oh
Yes,
no, cover my face.
That's better. Good.
Yeah. And it really does make a difference. And also, do you know, Carol, some people hardly ever change their sewing needle.
Oh, they cost pennies.
Exactly. Yeah.
New project, new needle every time. New
pack
project.
of these, there's 6 needles, I think are 2 or 3 quid. So divide that by 6, that makes it what? Not even 50p each? Yeah, new needle each time. There we go. That's the teacher stuff done with. Let's go to another question. Let's go to my computer. I've gone out of sync now. There we go. Tom, who often does come back every year to join in the discussion, the Sewing Bee discussion, says, discussion about negative ease. We call it negative ease in the knitting world. It's the excess fabric that you might have to make it a bit more slouchy or a bit more of a box fit. I don't know what you would call it. Do you call it a negative ease in the couture world?
Tolerance. We would call that tolerance.
Right.
How much tolerance do you need in a garment to make it comfortable or
so you can
accommodate?
see Colin has purposely not given me that much tolerance. There may be an inch or so, and on my gym top there is no tolerance. It will, because I like it fitted, that will be negative ease. So when my rippling muscles go in, it will come out. Often with knitting, you can get garments 5 to 10 centimeters of ease, and that's a lot of, it's almost like the ripples of a curtain. You've got all that excess fabric. Anyway, Tom says, how do you pick the happy medium where the garment's tight enough to sit neatly but still relaxed enough for a good range of movement? That's a tough question.
Yeah, well, hey Tom, I would say that it's got to do with the fabric. So you have a certain amount of tolerance, but it does depend on how far the fabric then will stretch or not stretch, so it's kind of a combination of what the wearer wants to feel and what the fabric how the fabric performs. So how do you strike a balance? Well, I think that happens in the fitting, I would think, and then, but also when you're planning a garment, it's how you want it to look. Now, Stuart says, if it's this kind of a garment, I want it fitted, I want it on me. But if it's this kind of a garment, I want a little bit of, I know when I work, I can't have anything on me. I need a lot of tolerance.
Okay.
And I tend to, button the shirt up higher because I don't want it falling back.
Yeah.
And I just don't want to feel any restrictions at all. But then if I'm in the gym, then I want things fitted. Right? So it just depends what the wearer wants and what the fabric will do.
Yes, it's that communication then, isn't it? Where you go, like you said, with your Team GB, you're going backwards and forwards. I suppose that's where you would do a toile in the first place and get your person to wear the toile. And that's when you'd go, I'd go, oh, that's a bit too loose. Can you get rid of some of this ease? And then Tom would go, okay, and start pinning it and taking it in. Would you start pinning it there or whatever garment it is? Is that right?
Exactly. And have people move, because something looks a certain way on a mannequin or on a hanger, but now we're making a living and breathing garment for a living and breathing person, right? This garment has a job to do. The sports set of challenges is a perfect example of a uniform that has a job to do. So it's those two things.
I'm trying to
think. How fabric. Sorry, Stuart, but we saw how fabric cooperated and then we saw how fabric didn't.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to think if I'm making myself a shirt. You know, I've got this pattern now. I've made 3 shirts out of that. I've been, since going to the gym, I now know that that pattern that I've made last year isn't really going to fit me anymore, because there was no ease in it anyway when I made it last year. So I'm going to, it's trial and error now, isn't it? I'm going to, what do I do? Do I recut my pattern out and add a centimetre? How do I work that one out to get a happy medium? Do I have to make one and see if it works or not, I suppose?
Or ask yourself, how has my shape changed? You know, are my biceps thicker? Is my back broader, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of questions. And it might be that if you have a box pleat in the center back of under the yoke,
does. Yeah.
Okay, that you just increase the size of that box pleat, so that all of that under the arm then there's gonna be more ease over the back.
Yeah.
And you might want to just put a bit more maybe onto the shoulder. It might just a half centimeter in the bicep.
Yeah.
Has your waist become more defined shape?
Well, thank you, Carol.
Well, all these things, you know, we're talking about the body and what the body does and how it looks and what the proportions are and all these things. Now we're talking about bespoke.
Absolutely. Because
tailoring.
As Tom says there, enough for a good range of movement. I'll know if I put that shirt on now and I raise my arm up, I'm going to have this issue here where there's no room. It'll be so tight that it will pull all this up. So I know I'm going to have to work on that part to get a good range of movement.
Yeah, and what we call the depth of sigh, which is where the underarm is. Now, this is a bigger shirt, but if the depth of sigh is too low, you can't move.
No.
If that underarm is high enough, look.
Yeah.
But if it's too low, you can't move.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm going to have to work on.
The depth of the underarm is very important.
In the knitting world, it's really awkward, and I have to have lots of conversations with my customers because they'll see a pattern and the knitting pattern will say it fits say a 32-inch chest, but they'll also have on the same pattern lower down they'll have the actual finished size. So even though it's the size that you see in the shops, 32 or 12, 14, 16, but the actual finished size will say 40. And I'll say to my customer, all right, you say you're a 32, but keep looking down here. The actual finished garment of this is 40. That's 30, that's 8 inches of ease. And I have to say to them, do you want that, or do you need to go down a size smaller to counterbalance that extra slack? Because you may not want that extra slack in there.
That's right. And whatever you're measuring, you know, you've got your actual size. So then the wearer can say, okay, this is the actual size.
Yes, they go. Yeah.
Do I want that?
And that's what they go. They go, oh, no, I don't want all that. Yeah.
So now you can say, oh, okay, so maybe I want that much.
Yes.
You know, so you can take that out. So if you need something to relate to this thing called ease or negative ease, Tom, so you can use a measuring tape, and it's about the fit and what the fabric will do.
What did you call it again in the couture world? You call it tolerance. Tolerance, that's right. Yeah. How much fabric you can tolerate. Oh, brilliant. Love it. And our last question from Alison was, she just says how to choose and select a stretch fabric. They've got it wrong before and ended up with fabrics that's too dense. So how do you choose a jersey for a wrap dress compared to stretch that's suitable for dancers' swimwear? Oh, I don't know. How do you do that?
So I suppose one thing you could do is you could rely on your supplier, that person behind the counter, when you go to choose fabric, and bring your pattern or your sketch, tell them what the job that you want this fabric to do for you. Ask for a selection, and then just do some tests. Maybe just, put it between your hand, feel it, stretch it about,
Yeah.
play with it a little bit and see. But that's going to, until you learn what fabrics are. And let's be fair, new fabrics are coming out all the time. There's such a selection
Yeah.
now. There's a lot of online forums that you can go to. You can ask. You can look in the shops or look online, and sometimes they'll give you the fiber content and
Yeah.
the weight of the fabric. So you can, there's a lot of information out there. But I can empathize, because you've got something in mind. I know it myself. And then you can't find anything. So then
Yeah.
you make a compromise. You say, oh, this is the closest thing, but it isn't right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a trick.
I know it's something that we don't have much of anymore, but you cannot, what you get out of a bricks and mortar shop and that conversation with the owner over the fabric and that discussion, you can't beat that. But I know we don't have those shops everywhere. But even if it means traveling 10, 15 miles to go to, or you've heard about a good fabric shop, it's still worth that extra hassle. Going in, feeling it, then talking, because the host should... I mean, if you came to my shop when I had fabric, we would have that discussion, and I'd show it to you and you'd feel it, and then you'd go, oh, I'm not too sure about that. Well, how about this one? This has got a different stretch, or it's like this. It's invaluable, that, isn't it?
Oh, it is invaluable. And sometimes you could call up, someone will know if you're earnest or not. And you can say, look, have you got anything? Can you
Yeah.
send me a sample? Or can you take a picture
Yeah.
and text it to
Yeah.
me? And then, you could always ask for a 10 centimeter sample, buy it, they'll
Yeah.
post it to you. And if the shop is too far away,
Yeah.
and I think people do want to help now. People do want to sell.
Yeah.
They want to stay in business.
You do, yeah. And use that expertise. So you get that fabric, you've got your 1/2 meter, you can then sew with it, make something, do some seams, you can put it in the washing machine. It comes back to
That's
that
right.
preparation again, doesn't it?
Totally. Yes, absolutely. I was going to say, this is probably 30 centimeters of fabric.
Yeah.
Get it, play with it, see what it will do, master it.
Absolutely. And enjoy. It's almost like in the knitting world where we have to do a swatch. I see a pattern and I go, I love that. Ideally, you don't really just want to go and choose some wool and start knitting it, because you might get halfway through 10 hours worth of knitting and you realise it's too small. You're supposed to do a swatch first. Knit the swatch up, 10 centimetres, so you can see the fabric, and wash it so you can see how it ends up. Because you're going to spend a lot of money on this, aren't you? So enjoy these first preps rather than making them... Because I know a lot of people go, oh, I can't be bothered to swatch. And I know it's tedious. But actually, if you try and change that mindset of enjoying these early steps of exploration, it makes the process, I know it's going to be longer, but I think it will be more fulfilling and more rewarding.
Totally. And also, if you've got something around in your shop which isn't right, try that. Make it out of something wrong. Make it out of something, and then you'll learn from that as well. You'll say, actually, I like the properties of this, or I'm going to completely stay away from that. So even use what you have around.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Make something out of calico so that you know what you want or you don't want.
Absolutely. It's just slowing down that process and being in the moment more, rather than going, I need to quickly make this and boom, 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 and then get halfway through and then get upset. But I know we all battle with time, don't we? We all want to, we've got precious things. We've got to do that next week, and I've got to do that week. So you try and fit your sewing time into perhaps an afternoon. So it then becomes, again, a battle of time. So you feel you have to work quicker, which I know can be frustrating.
Totally. And the results aren't good. Don't do anything in 3 hours, people. Just don't do it.
Well, there we are, Carol. We've got an epic show. It's 1 hour and 23 minutes.
Oh,
but
always good chatting to you. Always good to do it.
We could talk all evening, couldn't we? It's been wonderful. Let us know in the comments what you thought and if it was helpful. We'll be back next week. It's holiday week next week. Oh, so I have no idea what they'll be doing. But we've then got, we've lost 2 sewers, so we've got 10. So we can start to hopefully go into a bit more detail in all their makes, which I always like, going through all the rounds. As we lose some sewers, we have a bit more time. So I hope you join us for then. Have you got a busy week ahead of yourself, Carol? Have you got lots of making to do?
Just delivered a bridal gown today, and tomorrow I have Gran, Mom, and the bride in a 3-hour fitting. So we're going to do three tomorrow, and then everybody goes off to Mallorca for the wedding in 2 weeks. So this is the kind of the final stages of this. So yeah, it's gonna be good fun. They're lovely. It's great. Great fun.
How exciting. Loved your company. Thank you very much for tuning in to watch each week. And we'll see you next week for week 3, holiday week, with our special focus. Thanks, everyone. Cheers all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.